It's our show league draft. The League of Assholes, actually.
That's right.
Is literally what the league is called.
That is the league.
So,
that is the league name.
LOA.
Do you know why? it's the League of Assholes?
Because you got upset once at a small thing?
No.
Well, once?
Yeah, by the way,
One
that's actually
time?
a good answer. That's actually a good answer.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. I'm Connor Rogers alongside Matthew Berry, Jay Croucher. Our draft is in the books, and the league projects Jay to score the most points and me to have the most wins.
Where are you, Matthew, in the
Where
projections?
do you stand in that? Did you read your report card?
That's my
I
first
did.
question.
I got a D report card. I got a D grade
generous.
on my draft. I'm projected, I think, 10th in the standings. I don't know where I am in wins, but I'm projected 10th in the standings. I will tell you this. Last year, I also got a D on my report card. I was also projected like 10th or 11th. So I take it as a badge of honor. I'm very happy with it. Suffice it to say, and by the way, coming up in the show, you'll see the difference between my ranks and the Yahoo default ranks. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. But just so you know, yeah, for example, they thought, well, and we're going to get into our teams, but like, it's a Superflex league, and they didn't like the fact that I drafted a second quarterback. So I don't know what to tell you.
I want to be fair to you, though. You didn't realize until the third round it was full PPR.
We'll talk about that. Well, no, because Yahoo's default is half-point PPR, and that's what I thought we were playing, because whatever.
I read the...
You know what? Screw you guys.
Seven rules. Yes, and I checked the scoring.
Yeah, no.
because I read the habits of successful drafters.
I'll be very honest about this. You guys have painted me in this corner, and so I'm just doing it. I'm just gonna do this. No. In all seriousness, NBC has a deal with Yahoo. We have a contract with Yahoo. We do.
Not what I wanted.
We have a contract with Yahoo, and so as a result, this show plays that league on Yahoo. And my assumption is that because we are doing a Yahoo league as part of our contract, because of a larger NBC Sports and Yahoo contract, and we're playing out this league on Yahoo, that we would do Yahoo default scoring, which was half-point PPR. And we are not doing that. And so that's fine. It's whatever. It affected one choice where I had the choice between Derrick Henry or Isaiah Pacheco in the third round. And I probably would have gone Pacheco had I known that, but instead I went Derrick Henry. I like both of them. Both are on my love list. I'm totally fine with King Henry. I will use him to slap you like a grape.
Yes. To be clear, my team name is Slap Them Like a Grape.
Yes.
Because you constantly talk about doing things with grapes.
Yes.
They're not the conventional wording.
Yeah.
What you do.
Crush you like a grape.
Yes, you use every
Crush
other
you like a grape.
aspect
Yeah,
of
exactly.
that. But no,
So
that's
anyway.
good. Glad you're making excuses already.
I'm not making any
Not a
excuses.
game has been played.
I'm the defending champion. I'm the defending It's not an excuse. It's an explanation. It's not an excuse.
So you're saying you won the championship last year without even knowing the scoring?
No, that's not true.
Third year in the league, by the way.
What's going on with the quarter zip today? Is there a shirt underneath that?
Yeah, why?
I'm just wondering. I don't see anything. I see some neck
you
and
look
chest.
this is how One Night in Buffalo started, Jay.
Exactly.
Exactly. He said,
concerning.
yeah. I do have a T-shirt on underneath,
Okay,
in case
I'll
you were wondering.
I'll take your word
Deep
for
V.
it.
It's a deep V.
ADP.
Deep V Berry.
Whatever.
Slapping them
I
like a
literally
grape.
am. This year, I have because of our acquisition of Guillotine League. I've done a zillion. I'm like in 10 different Guillotine leagues, and I think I'm in 25 to 30 leagues right now. Like I've literally done 30 drafts, and yesterday during our actual live draft, I was slow drafting 3 other leagues. So I think I can be forgiven for this was half-point PPR versus PPR. It's whatever. I'm going to mark my words. I am the champion of this league, and I don't want to sit here and put up bulletin board material and saying I'm going to repeat. But here's what I will tell you: I'm beating these 2 a-holes. That much I can promise you. That much is happening.
We'll have a look at our teams later on.
Yeah, that's
the show.
fine.
Yes, we will.
But that's fine. Hang your hat on an AI-generated.
I love AI is the way of the future, baby.
AI-generated report card. What did the report card give you last year?
I don't remember. Definitely not projected to be the best.
Yeah. What
I
about
was
you?
mid-tier.
Yeah.
It was a
Right,
mid-tier
same.
team. It was accurate.
And by the way, but all you guys made the playoffs.
Yeah, that's
right.
true.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
right. This year it's different though. This year it's right.
I got a D. One of the reasons I got a D grade was because
The tech has improved.
Yeah, they didn't like me selecting Jaden Daniels as my number 2 quarterback in a superflex.
They
league.
called out the commander's bias immediately. The AI is getting better.
Not sure the AI is programmed to Superflex, to be fair.
Exactly.
Yeah, no.
Exactly. That's the point.
All right, before we get back
but whatever,
to...
and it's fine. I happily accept my D grade. Again, last year they gave me a D grade, and I won the effing title.
We are going to look at our rosters.
Going away.
But before we do that, today we're taking all your draft questions. So we're going to have a ton of questions answered on today's show. But before we even do that, let's look at some of the best ways to exploit ADP across platforms for people like you that play on multiple platforms.
Correct. It's always important. We talk about this, and we talked about this in the manifesto. But the fact of the matter is that the draft room and the average draft position, the default ranks in the draft room of whether you play on Yahoo or ESPN or Sleeper or wherever else, NFL, you name it, wherever you play, those ranks within the draft room greatly influence how your draft goes. You've got a minute on the clock. It's counting down. I can't think about others. Yeah, I'll take one of the top guys on the list. And so it greatly influences how drafts go. And so I think it's always important to look at where whatever ranking set you use, hopefully you use mine, but whoever's ranking sets you use, look at the default ADP on whatever platform you're going to play on, and then your own personal ranks, whatever ranks you have that you're going to use, and kind of see where you can arbitrage against, this guy's going much higher than I want to take him, this guy's going much lower, that sort of thing. And so we're going to point out some of the examples.
Let's jump into the running backs, specifically your rankings, Matthew, compared to Yahoo, to show kind of exactly what you're talking about here. It's just that how things differ. So let's take a look at that. As we see, you have James Cook as RB13 on Yahoo's ADP. He's RB15. James Conner, another 2-spot difference, 18 for you, 20 on Yahoo. Jaylen Warren, this is a bigger one, RB25 compared to RB29. And then Chase Brown, RB29 for you, RB36 on Yahoo. So a big disparity for these 4 players.
For sure. And what this helps here, what this shows you is that, if you're interested in Cook, Conner, Warren, or Brown specifically, they may go slightly later than where I have them ranked, which is just, it's good value for you. And so as you're sitting there going do I want to grab this guy this round or do I want to grab him in the next round? Again, sort of seeing that will help you determine where you want to pick players.
Jay, I know you are a Najee Harris stan.
Yes.
But how comfortable would you be drafting Jaylen Warren? Because we've seen this offense utilize both of these running backs, and it's not like with Russell Wilson or eventually maybe Justin Fields under center, they're going to be throwing 45 times a game.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is the thing that you just see it in drafts time and time again. People just don't like the Q next to the guy's name. They don't like the red injury flag. Looks like Jaylen Warren's going to play week 1. So all the question marks about him, I think that is in a way the biggest inefficiency in drafting the late Mike Vrabel era in Tennessee, they've tried to use an inefficiency in their drafting of taking injury guys and bad character guys. Didn't work out for them. Can work out in fantasy though. If you want to be taking advantage of people being scared of injuries or suspensions that may never happen, that is one of the big inefficiencies. I think Jaylen Warren's an example of that, where everyone's just kind of baked into their head that he's going to miss time. No, it seems like he's fine, and he was able to provide value last year.
But even if he misses one game, whatever, it's going to be a run-heavy offense. Arthur Smith is going to use both running backs quite a bit. You think about the Falcons under Arthur Smith. They were actually 3rd in the NFL in terms of running back target share. He likes to dump off to the running back. Also partially the reason because, Desmond Ridder, what else he's going to do with the ball. But I do think running backs involved in the passing attack is a big part of what Arthur Smith likes to do offensively. And you think about last year, he was top 2 among running backs in terms of games with at least 4 receptions. He had 9 different games with at least 4 receptions last year as well. 7th in fantasy points per touch. When this guy touches the ball, he produces. And I don't have a stat for this, but just to the eye test, Jay, with all due respect to your beloved Najee,
Warren looks better.
Jaylen Warren looks better.
He's more efficient runner.
It doesn't even. It's not close to me.
It's not close. But we know Arthur Smith sees a 6'2", 220-pound running back and goes, okay, let's lock and load 15 to 20 touches.
Just one last thing on Desmond Ridder, who got cut by the Cardinals. He's going to sign for the practice squad, but he lost out a backup job to Clayton Tune. And so there's things that you can read into that. One, the Falcons just should be a lot better this year. If their starting quarterback from last year is getting beaten out by Clayton Tune for a backup job. And then also Arthur Smith, who came into Atlanta with pretty good pedigree in terms of an offensive mind, offensive play caller after his success in Tennessee. I still think this guy is going to be a good offensive coordinator and is going to be able to commandeer a pretty efficient running offense.
Let's look at the ESPN ADPs as well, because we went through Yahoo with the running backs. We'll show some of the same, but just how your rankings, Matthew, stack up against some ESPN ADPs. So Devon A. Chan, RB11 for you, RB15 on ESPN. Josh Jacobs, RB12 for you, RB16 on ESPN, so a 4-spot difference. Again, James Conner, once again, a guy that we always talk about being undervalued. RB18 for you, RB22 on ESPN. Raheem Mostert, who had a phenomenal season last year and is still the guy in Miami, RB22 for you, RB27 on ESPN. And the last one again, Chase Brown, RB29, RB38 on ESPN.
Yeah, there's an upside to Chase Brown, and even with quote half the work in Cincinnati, and we're still waiting to see sort of how that backfield plays out. But there's an upside to Chase Brown. Running back 38 is mind-boggling to me in terms of that default rank. Achane and Mostert both are potential league winners. Because that offense is so explosive, and we saw both guys be very productive last year. No big deal, but Raheem Mostert, part of the championship-winning team for me last year here in our Yahoo League. And the other thing here is Josh Jacobs. I'm at running back 12. I'm going to do a whole rankings update this afternoon, so be sure to check that and look it out for rotoworld.com. I'm pretty sure Josh Jacobs is going to move up to running back 11 and maybe even 10. Again, because there's no one else. Again, with the injury to A.J. Dillon and Marshawn Lloyd being banged up, it's like him and Emmanuel Wilson. And so I moved him up, but just I think he probably moves up to running back 11. I was looking at it last night in terms of what I want to do.
Yeah, Connor, to me, Jacobs is one of the most confounding players in drafts because, you look at the depth chart, it's like, well, this is Josh Jacobs. They signed him. They can run him into the ground because of the way his contract is structured. And he won the rushing title 2 years ago, and he's a guy with first-round pedigree. He's clearly talented. There's that on one hand. On the other hand, he was terrible last year. He was terrible when he got opportunities. All his underlying stats fell off a cliff. And then my biggest concern is Matt LaFleur has said previously he doesn't believe in workhorse backs. He believes in just philosophically in giving multiple guys a chance to keep guys fresh. Now that philosophy is going to get tested because he doesn't have anyone else. Where do you think Jacobs ends up?
It's a tricky one, right? Now, I'm going to put last year on the whole debacle over summer where he got into running backs coming into camp play is a death wish. That's just going to set them back. And remember, the Giants got things done early with Saquon Barkley, but with Josh Jacobs, that dragged out a little bit. He just didn't look anything like the player he's been his entire life. He got signed by Green Bay during free agency. He's been there for every single part of the spring and summer. So that part's out the window. The LaFleur part is hard to predict because they don't have anyone talented enough to be used the way they used Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon in the past, where one series is Jones, one series is Dillon. So I'm going to buy in that they just have to use him as a workhorse. Yeah. The biggest factor for me, if he lives up to Matthew's rankings, are they going to throw him the ball? Right? Because there's a ton of wide receivers. Mm-hmm. There's guys that get manufactured touches like Jaden Reed. There's 2 tight ends. So does Josh Jacobs get the pass-catching equity that he needs to be that good in fantasy? But he should because he's good at it.
Yeah, I was going to say that's in his skill set, and I would think he will get at least some, maybe not massive, but he won't be at 0 in the passing game. And the other thing is, to your point about attitude, I think that's so right because Josh Jacobs felt disrespected by the Raiders, and eventually they begrudgingly gave him a little bit of a bump last year, but it was like
a joke.
It was like a joke. Yeah, it was just something. Whereas the Packers obviously went out, they paid him a lot more money than I think people expected. You know what I mean? And the headlines are better than, to your point, like it's only 1 year guaranteed. It's a bigger headline than actual guaranteed money, but still, Josh Jacobs, it feels appreciated. He's in Green Bay where there's a winning culture. They're coming off of a playoff upset, and honestly they were close to playing for the Super Bowl.
Almost made the NFC title game. Yeah. Last thing before we move off Jacobs, A.J. Dillon got 178 carries last year, averaging 3.4 yards per carry. That would be my concern, is that LaFleur just wants to use another guy. Now, it's not going to be A.J. Dillon, but it could be anyone else. But I think that Jacobs will get more passing game work to make up for any kind of lack of fulfilling the ultra workhorse load.
I think it comes down to this. It's a good offense. It's going to have goal line opportunities.
Correct.
He's the only goal line player. Jordan Love doesn't steal touchdowns.
Nope.
They don't have a running back behind him right now. And even if Marshawn Lloyd gets healthy, that's not his game. He's not a goal line back.
Yep.
So, I would definitely be in on Josh Jacobs, at least for this season. Okay, last one on the running backs here, just to get back to Chase Brown and the upside, Matthew. Is it a situation where you have to still take Zach Moss with him so you just have a giant piece of the Bengals backfield together?
I don't think so. I remember Joe Mixon had 309 touches last year. 309. So, I mean, that's now up for grabs. Mixon also, by the way, led the NFL in goal-to-go rushing attempts. He was 3rd in red zone rushing attempts. So, when they got in close, they like to run the ball and they like to give it to Joe Mixon. Now, is that probably going to be Zach Moss? Yeah, but I think there's an explosiveness to Chase Brown that isn't there with Zach Moss. I don't think you need both running backs. I don't hate it, but that's not something I kind of think you ought to pick a lane. And I think Chase Brown, actually, in terms of how I've seen drafts go, and you look at ADP, to me, Chase Brown's the bigger value than Zach Moss. He's just going way late. The fact that he is barely a top 40 running back on ESPN is mind-boggling to me.
Let's do the same thing for wide receivers, and we'll start with Yahoo. The wide receivers that are going earlier in your drafts. Nico Collins, wide receiver 11 for Matthew, wide receiver 17 on Yahoo ADP. Jaylen Waddle, 15 for Matthew, 20 on Yahoo ADP. Malik Nabers, wide receiver 18, wide receiver 25 on Yahoo ADP. Let's stop right there.
I mean, dude, like again, it's half-point PPR, but still, like I have Malik Nabers at wide receiver 18. I might be too low on him. I think wide receiver 18 is probably too low on him.
He has top 12 upside.
1,000%.
It's talent and volume. Literally, the red flag next to Malik Nabers is Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
That's what's stopping people from drafting him, and I don't know if it's stopping people anymore.
I think in our draft yesterday, he went ahead of Puka Nacua, if I'm not mistaken, which I think is not unreasonable.
Absolutely not.
You can tell everybody in the draft watches this show every day because your Puka takes. Puka was on the board for.
Puka actually went after Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah. We're going to get to the draft recap in a second. It is super annoying. In addition to the fact that you guys are a-holes, but in addition to that, the other part that's frustrating about our league is just like again,
the same thoughts.
we've been talking about the same players. Everyone in this show has been talking about these players for 2 months now, so they all know exactly how I think. They know how you think.
Yep.
They know how you think, Jay. They know how Lawrence thinks about players, and so it's it was annoying. It was very annoying. Yeah. Producer Adam was by far the most annoying in terms of his draft.
Yeah, I knew Lawrence was minus 50,000 to take Lamar Jackson at pick 3. That's the way it's going to happen.
1,000%.
And he did.
Yes, of course he did.
Let's look at the wide receivers that are going later than that, and this is once again Matthew's rankings compared to Yahoo ADP on the board here. So Terry McLaurin, 53 for you, 77 and a half.
Dude, come on.
He's the number 1 wide receiver in an offense that doesn't have a lot of pass catchers.
Right. And with a much better quarterback, and they're going to throw deep, and it's going to be a pass-first, fantasy-friendly offense under Cliff Kingsbury.
Xavier Worthy, 64 for you.
This is just a joke.
About 110 on Yahoo. He was one yesterday in our draft. I remember we all looked around and said, "Wow, he was still on the board." Whenever somebody took him, he just got lost in the draft machine. Yeah. Calvin Ridley, 66 for you.
Yeah.
Outside the top 90. Rome Odunze, 76 for you. He's going around 100th overall.
Yeah.
Brian Thomas Jr., 84th for you, 120.
Brian Thomas is going to play every snap.
He's turned it on the last couple weeks at camp, too.
He's going to play every snap.
Yeah. He's just too good, too talented.
Yeah. And the other thing is, again, I'll do a rankings update even later today, but some of these guys, like Rashee Rice, going back to the Yahoo list, I have Rashee Rice at wide receiver 25. Yahoo has him at wide receiver 33. And Rashee Rice is going to go higher than wide receiver 25 now that we have the news that, again, this is what we've been talking about, that I don't think, what I've been saying for the last 2 months is I don't think a decision on any potential suspension for Rashee Rice will happen until next year, because the NFL generally likes to wait out the legal process and sort of see what happens there before they make any decision on disciplinary action within the league. And then that exact NFL Network comes out and reports that exact thing. So as opposed to just sort of that was my speculation, or that's what history has dictated. That's usually how the NFL operates. NFL Network came out yesterday and said this is exactly the plan for Rashee Rice. The league does not want to do anything with Rice until the legal process plays out, and then they will see what the result of that court case is, and then they will make a determination if a suspension is warranted.
Yep. Last year, Calvin Ridley was going as wide receiver 16 going into drafts. This year he's going as wide receiver 35. Obviously, we have a full season of data in between, new context and everything, but that's still a massive change that I don't think is warranted.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's other people underestimating two things. I think they're underestimating the fact that it's now another year of Ridley. Now he's, I don't want to say he wasn't in football shape, but there was definitely some rust last year. Connor, we
drops
talked
that
about
he wouldn't normally make.
Yeah, he's been out of the game for a while. Right.
And I also think people are just Tennessee. They're that's not your dad's Tennessee Titans.
Not buying into Will Levis. They're not buying into the changes with the staff. Everybody wants to see it before they're comfortable with it.
It's not your 1 year older than you older brother's Tennessee Titans. It's going to be a different team to last year.
Absolutely.
Will Levis, I think, is going to be good.
I agree with you. Tighten up. Tighten up.
Last one here, Jay. Rome Odunze. I mean, we saw it with all those guys. Worthy, Rome Odunze, Brian Thomas Jr. all pushed down the board because they're rookies in the default ranks. It feels like people forget Rome Odunze was a top 10 pick in this draft, despite having Keenan Allen and DJ Moore technically on the depth chart ahead of him.
Yeah, I mean, he would be the third favorite to be the number 1 guy out of those 3, but I think there is very within the range of outcomes for Rome Odunze to end up as the number 2 receiver on the Bears, be it through Keenan Allen getting older in a hurry or one of those two guys getting hurt. Keenan Allen gets hurt all the time. And I think that Allen in particular, his stats were just so inflated last year by the fact that there was no other options for Justin Herbert in the passing game. So Odunze, I mean, we saw the connection that they have in preseason. Like, he's not just going to be an afterthought. They took him in the top 10. They're going to use him. Caleb Williams is going to throw the ball to Rome Odunze.
Yeah, the only I think Odunze insanely talented, right? And I think the injury concerns on Keenan Allen are completely legitimate. The anti-Odunze argument, although obviously I have him significantly higher because at some point you just bank on talent. You just bank on talent, and as we talked about, the talent is not in question. The opportunity is what's slightly in question. But at 76 overall, like I have an 8th round pick. I have an 8th round grade on Rome Odunze. Like, that's fine, But like Yahoo has him going outside the top 100 basically, and the only argument that you could take is that you're like, well, Jackson Smith-Njigba was the most talented wide receiver in the draft class last year, and he just couldn't produce fantasy-wise under Shane Waldron because, again, they had 3 guys there. But I think it's a different situation. Honestly, I think Caleb Williams this year is going to be better than Geno Smith was last year, and I think that that Odunze, I mean, I don't know, you can talk to this, but like as much as we like Jackson Smith-Njigba, I feel like Odunze is a step ahead.
It's a bigger perimeter target, can play inside and outside, can kind of be that alpha wide receiver. Yeah, you don't really have to scheme a lot of things around him. You can saw it right there, Caleb Williams, throw him the ball when he's covered. And he'll go up and make a play. Contested catch monster.
We talked to Odunze at the Super Bowl.
He was awesome.
Loved the kid as well. It's surprising. I mean, Connor, you and I did.
Yep.
Jay didn't like him, and you know how I know? Because Jay didn't crop out us of a picture with Rome Odunze.
No, he didn't even go to the desk.
No,
he said, I want nothing to do with this desk.
I was actually at the Sphere with Puka.
Makes sense.
Yeah, watching you two.
For the second time.
Yeah.
So you just kept seeing you two.
Puka's favorite song is Elevation.
The Odunze story is it's like what was the story? Like, he punctured his lung in a game and he couldn't fly.
Like, medically, it wasn't cleared to fly.
So he drove. He rented a car or whatever.
I think it was cross states.
Like cross state. Right. I want to say like from Nevada to California or something like that. Something insane.
Pretty good drive.
Right. He drove so he could play in
Yep.
He's that dude.
Worked out with their basketball team.
Yeah.
Just to high point the ball. He did rebounding drills. He's very just different. It's gonna work. Let's just say that.
Rome Odunze is that dude.
Yeah. If you're in a keeper league, you should have all 3 of these guys circled because they could bring back huge. You get one in the 9th or 10th round. Next year you have a free wide receiver 2 or whatever it may be.
And then the last one also is just Xavier Worthy. I mean, like, just we've seen, they've made a point of it. They're going to throw deep to him. He's playing with the best quarterback in football. He's a deep threat. I know they've got Marquise Brown, we've got Rice and Kelsey, a lot of mouths to feed, but still, like Xavier, we have seen talented rookies under Andy Reid produce, and so Xavier Worthy, I think you're betting on talent in the quarterback.
I think Xavier Worthy could be the man we wanted Gabe Davis to be for the past 3 years in terms of production.
Yeah.
Let's see how the wide receivers stack up on ESPN ADPs, because that was all at Yahoo. So this is Matthew's rankings.
Yeah.
Drake London, wide receiver 10. He's 15 on ESPN. Deebo Samuel, 14 for Matthew, 18 on ESPN. A big difference for Jaylen Waddle. Wide receiver 15 for you. I don't know how you could have Jaylen Waddle wide receiver 24.
That's so weird.
That's an odd one. Cooper Kupp, we've really hammered home on this show. Wide receiver 17 for Matthew. He's outside the top 20 on ESPN. The last one, Rashee Rice. This one is going to probably propel upwards after yesterday, but he's wide receiver 25 for you, Matthew. Still wide receiver 32 on ESPN.
Yeah, again, those ADPs just make no sense to me at all. Waddle is the real head scratcher at wide receiver 24. Rice going outside the top 30 is crazy, and then Kupp going outside the top 20. Kupp could be a top 5 fantasy wide receiver. I mean, it's
points
easy.
per game. You know what you're getting.
1,000%.
Let's look at the later wide receivers. Once again, Matthew's rankings up against ESPN ADP. Christian Kirk. I'm going to stop right at this one because this is insane. 51 for you, Matthew. 96 on ESPN for Christian Kirk. Why is he going so late in full PPR?
I have no idea. He was a little bit banged up last year, and
they added players. Is that the thought?
He's got the Q next to his name this year again.
Maybe that's what it is. Again, banged up last year, in and out of the lineup, and somewhat banged up this year. They add Brian Thomas. They signed Gabe Davis, so maybe there's concern about increased target competition, and but that's a bizarre one to me. Like, again, we've talked about this a lot of times on this show, but like when I interviewed Doug Peterson at the Combine, like he specifically brought up Christian Kirk and felt like they didn't get nearly enough out of Christian Kirk last year and that was their fault. Partially it was health, but also just because Zay Jones was so hurt, they constantly had to play Christian Kirk on the outside, which is not where he's comfortable. Where he's really effective is in the slot. They want to get him in the slot and have him play the majority of the snaps there where he is so effective. Being in the slot is kind of a cheat code. Kirk signed a big deal. Like, they like him a lot. He's a talented wide receiver. And so now that you've got Thomas Jr. and Gabe Davis on the outside, Kirk's just going to be able to eat in the middle and just, with a fully healthy Trevor Lawrence too. Lawrence was banged up too. It's a whole lost season for the Jaguars. Like, they just sort of grinded it out.
Yeah, there's this thing with Christian Kirk and Josh Palmer where it's like these guys are both clear favorites to be the number one option for Trevor Lawrence and Justin Herbert, and they're both going outside. I mean, Josh Palmer's going outside the top 45 of wide receivers, and Kirk's going outside the top 30.
Let's move over to the quarterbacks, and we'll start with Yahoo.
Real quickly, Deontay Johnson, I'm at 63. He's going at 93 on ESPN. That's another one. Like, everything you've heard out of Carolina is the passing offense goes through this guy. He's going to get a massive target share from an improved quarterback and an improved offense.
Yeah, if you're playing PPR, you have to be in on Deontay Johnson.
I have so much Deontay Johnson this year. Yeah. Somebody else took him from me in our league, but I have a lot of shares of Deontay Johnson.
Just a lot of buzz about the Panthers in general in the betting world. Their price is collapsing in terms of making the playoffs, a lot of activity behind that. I mean, they could be a competent offense, a competent team, and they weren't anything close to that last
What
year.
are in Canales Coach of the Year odds? Are they shrinking as well?
No, which they should be. Those things should be in lockstep.
Right.
I'm going to keep on saying it. Dave Canales can't be 18-1 to win Coach of the Year when they're like plus 500 to make the playoffs. If they make the playoffs, they go from 2 wins to 9+ wins. He has to win that award. Barring something like completely insane. Like, yeah, if the Lions go 17-0 or whatever. But, like, outside of massive outliers, Canales, he should be the favorite for the award.
Yeah.
Let's look at the quarterbacks. We'll start with Yahoo compared to Matthew's rankings for this one. Jaden Daniels, QB 10 on Yahoo, QB 12. Caleb Williams, another rookie quarterback, QB 13 for Matthew, QB 15 on Yahoo. Trevor Lawrence at QB 14, but going as QB 17 on Yahoo. Kirk Cousins, completely forgotten about. Top 15 quarterback for Matthew. He's QB 21 on Yahoo. And Matthew Stafford, really in the same mold as Kirk Cousins here, Jay. Just completely forgotten about as an effective fantasy starting quarterback. QB 18 for Matthew, QB 23 on Yahoo.
Yeah, and that sound that you heard before was Matthew throwing his toys out the pram and hitting the ground. Matthew Stafford, I think the key here, again, is so linked to Cooper Kupp. Like, Stafford was able to produce a lot of value down the back end of the last season. He was playing like a top 5 MVP candidate in the second half of the season, just with a fully healthy Cooper Kupp to pair with Puka Nacua. Also, it's like a team that's in the perfect sweet spot where they play in a dome. They're expected to win around 9 games, so it's not like they're just going to be running the ball in second halves all the time. I think Stafford is very slept on. Again, he's just not like a sexy name. Matthew Stafford's been in our lives for more than a decade.
Matthew Stafford was a top 9 fantasy quarterback over the second half of last year. Again, with the emergence of Puka and the Jordan Whittingham, they found him, and like Demarcus Robinson is the third wide receiver. Obviously, Kupp and Nacua. Yeah.
So here's the ESPN disparity here. Like, Kyler Murray, the ride or die. QB 5 for you, Matthew. QB 10 on ESPN.
Unbelievable. Way too cheap. Way too cheap.
Jaden Daniels, a 2-spot difference. QB 10 for you. QB 12 on ESPN. Trevor Lawrence, this is another big one. QB 14 for you. It's kind of hard to picture 18 quarterbacks ahead of Trevor Lawrence, but ESPN did that. It has that. And then Jared Goff, QB 16 for you. We keep saying how many indoor games he plays this year, going lower on ESPN as well.
Yeah, I don't get this. Trevor Lawrence was 4th in pass attempts per game last year, 6th most deep pass attempts. You mentioned it, like Calvin Ridley dropped a lot of balls that he probably shouldn't have, and I think if Calvin Ridley makes those catches, I think Trevor Lawrence's year looks a lot different. Really tough. Like, again, there was a guy that I felt like he just sort of gutted it out last year, but gets a little bit more production from his legs than I think he gets credit for. 21 rushing yards per game last year. 21% of his fantasy points came from rushing. He's had at least 4 rushing touchdowns in back-to-back years now as well. So Trevor Lawrence, who fully healthy, more weapons, another year in Doug Peterson's system. You know, I think we finally gotten all the Urban Meyer out of him. Give me some Trevor Lawrence as a sleeper.
Yep. 2 years ago, which is the last time that Trevor Lawrence had a fully healthy season, he was 1 touchdown pass away from being QB 6 on the season. He ended up being QB 8. Like, that is the type of talent. And just the added stuff that he gives you with his legs is just so useful in fantasy.
The Roto-World Fantasy Football Draft Guide is now available exclusively through a new partnership with Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life. Get a Fantasy Life Plus subscription and receive the Roto-World Draft Guide plus fantasy, DFS, and betting tools to help you dominate the draft like Jay and I did yesterday in our league and all season long. Use promo code ROTO10 for 10% off. Go to NBCSports.com/FantasyLife to learn more. We're taking our first break. When we're back, it's mailbag time. Your draft questions coming up next.
Roto10 at FantasyLife.com. Come on, let's go.
As the winner of last year, who do you think is your biggest competition?
I mean, honestly, look around. Look at this. Look at the League of Assholes right here. But honestly, I think the biggest competition is myself. If I'm being honest with you, it's complacency. So there you go. Josh Allen has been taken. Proud Fantasy Life investor Josh Allen, #1 overall pick.
I am impressed that you knew this was a super flex league before you drafted him. I gotta be honest.
You know who did not know it was a Superflex league? Jay Gunn. Let SNY know that Breece Hall was there for the taking, and Connor Rogers said no, thank you.
And you thought he would pivot to.
Let Breece Hall know. What's the name of your team?
Slap them like a grape.
Slap them like a grape. It's the phrase that's sweeping America. Yeah. Producer Steven, print up some t-shirts for that. We need some show merch. Slap them like a grape. Hey, do me a favor. Get a close-up of Jay desperately scrolling for news of Brandon Ayuk. Look, Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Someday he'll practice.
The pick I'm happy is with Cooper Kupp, because if it's a failure, I can put all the blame on Jay Croucher, who has been saying to take Cooper Kupp in top 30, maybe top 20, Offensive Player of the Year.
Guy I'm most happy I got was Chuba Hubbard. No, it was actually Stephon Diggs. Happy to get Diggs at pick 77, just a ridiculous slide. I think he's going to see a ton of targets from C.J. Stroud.
The guy I'm most happy that I got, Jayden Daniels. Like, obviously, I'm a Commanders fan as well, but it's a super flex league. I think having him as my second quarterback, obviously I got Josh Allen first, so being able to get Jayden Daniels as my #2 quarterback and the amount of rushing, the high floor he's going to have, very exciting.
As you can see, we have a lot of fun during our fantasy draft. A lot of Matthew banter.
Yes.
Jay having to defend himself. The Ayuk situation working out brilliantly.
Well, you guys kept asking why I was in the bathroom for so long. It's because I was on the phone to Kyle. He gave me the heads up. Yeah, I didn't want to step on Schefter's toes.
Ayuk fell in our draft, and Jay ended up taking it with the the belief that something will get worked out, and Ayuk will be on a football field at some point. And literally, like 4 to 5 hours later, the news breaks. Brandon Ayuk signs a massive deal with the San Francisco 49ers. He's going to be out there now. Which is great. 4 years, $120 million, which is obviously huge. And so Brandon Ayuk drafters drink for free. That includes you.
Yes.
Good for you.
Brandon Ayuk does not drink for free because they didn't need to. $120 million.
No, he's got the coin.
He's got the he got the bag, as the kids say. So anyway, I think, listen, if you drafted Brandon Ayuk, you're thrilled right now, and this is the best possible spot for Ayuk's fantasy value as opposed to going anywhere else. Staying in that system, staying with Brock Purdy, it's better for Brock Purdy's fantasy value as well. And I think now he hasn't been working out, so he might be a little slow out of the gate because but ultimately, I think you got a value there, and anyone that's
pick 53?
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Let's look at our teams for a little recap action. We'll start with you, Matthew, because you are the reigning champ, so you get to start. We'll see how you did this year.
Okay. So that's my team. So it's Superflex League. It is PPR, as we have noted. Listen, obviously Allen and Jayden Daniels was my Superflex. I got Will Levis there as a third quarterback on the bench. My wide receivers, right? Well, we'll start with the running backs, I guess. Derrick Henry and Kenneth Walker with Jaleel McLaughlin, who's going to be the third down back in Denver. We know Sean Payton loves to throw to his running backs, and so McLaughlin, who has some upside beyond just a third down back, because I don't think Javonte Williams has a stranglehold on that job. But listen, Henry and Walker both should get massive workloads in good offenses as well. Our guy Tyrone Tracy and Bucky Irving, some upside picks late. Yeah. And then at wide receiver, Mike Evans, Rashee Rice, who we've talked about. I get the stack with Terry McLaurin and Jaden Daniels, Jackson Smith and Jigba, who should have a big year this year for the Seahawks. With Gunn Walker and JSN, apparently, go Seahawks. Apparently, I'm in on Seattle this year.
You are very in on the Ryan Grubb offense.
And Ryan Grubb. I didn't go into the draft planning that, but that's how it all went. And then my very last pick, I'll just point out, Van Jefferson. You're like, whatever, but Van Jefferson's like going to be the number 2 wide receiver on the Falcons, and like if Russell Wilson is even semi-competent, like there's in a league our deep, that's as deep as ours is. I think there's some value in a guy like Van Jefferson.
You want to talk about taking Taysom Hill over Brock Bowers?
Sure, we can do that. There were two mistakes that I made. There were two, like I already talked about one of them, which is like I probably should have taken Pacheco over Henry, where I ended up drafting it. I have them close, but I think I probably. In hindsight, I probably would have rathered Pacheco in a full PPR. Again, at the moment, I had a brain fart, if you will, that I thought it was half PPR. The other thing that I did is, so I don't know if you guys remember, but everyone was pitching ride or dies. Everyone was pitching ride or dies, and to me, and so Denny Carter's pitch to me for ride or die was Taysom Hill, who qualifies at tight end on Yahoo. And I actually think he's in my love-hate. Like he's in the 10 list of 10 column that came out yesterday on rotoworld.com. I'm a company man. I think Taysom Hill is going to be used a lot more than anyone is ready for. They're going to use him a bunch of different ways, and he qualifies at tight end. They don't have a ton of weapons in New Orleans, and so I do think Hill, especially when you think about how thin the running back room is behind Kamara, they'll use him in the backfield. They'll use him, a little bit as quarterback. They'll do some option stuff with him in the red zone. So I thought he was a sneaky good, like late round tight end pick, and especially with Denny. And so I did it for the joke, like I'm going with a ride or die candidate, and it's Taysom Hill. The problem is that I was, like I mentioned, I'm in other drafts where I'm slow drafting. So I'm literally, like you saw in that video, if you were watching it, like I'm drafting on the big board there with everyone else, but I had my phone up because I'm doing some slow drafts. And literally like 10 minutes before, Brock Bowers had gone in one of my other leagues. I'd been circling him in another league. And so I just had another mental brain fart where I didn't look for Brock Bowers. And I assumed that Brock Bowers was gone in our league, and he wasn't. And I was like, so the combination of having that in my brain, oh, Bowers is off the table, and Taysom Hill's there, and oh, this will be a fun joke, and we're doing a video, those things combined for me to do something incredibly stupid, which is to draft Taysom Hill over Brock Bowers. Yeah, again, I don't love Bowers this year situation, but Brock Bowers should be going ahead of Taysom Hill. Like, that was a mistake by me. I own that. I own that. But it'll make my redemption story all that much better when I overcome that to win the League of Assholes.
Taysom
propelled by Taysom Hill and Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
He's a morale guy on your team.
He is a morale guy. He's a good glue guy.
There you go.
He's good in the locker room.
We'll take a look at my roster.
Here we go, Connor.
Actually,
walk us through this.
I don't even fully remember. I know I took Justin Jefferson with my first pick.
He was a player.
Yeah, he's good.
Anthony Richardson actually lasted a little longer than I thought. I haven't been all the way in on Anthony Richardson this year, but at this stage of the draft, Superflex League, I was happy to take him. Really went wide receiver heavy here. Justin Jefferson, Nico Collins, Cooper Kupp, DeAndre Hopkins. We'll see if he has anything left in the tank. Took Travis Kelce pretty late. The zero running back approach left me with Najee Harris and Raheem Mostert, which you could do worse with. Yeah,
1,000%.
Those guys. We went through this on the ADP situation.
Yeah.
Mostert, for whatever reason, it just sits there around later than you would expect. Chased volume with Devin Singletary in a flex spot. Quarterbacks in this league just fly. I really wanted Trevor Lawrence. He went one pick before, so I ended up with Justin Herbert. I do think we've reached a point with Herbert where it's gone too far.
Maybe.
That he's a viable QB2 in a super flex.
And I think you made it. Listen, grabbing Jaylen Wright on your bench, considering you have Mostert.
That was the strategy.
I think that's super smart, and having a piece, what potentially could be a significant piece of the Dolphins' backfield, I think is great.
And Josh Downs just sits there forever. He just sat there forever. So I got him on my bench because I have a pretty tough Week 6 bye stretch with a couple of these guys. Josh Downs is going to be playing in Week 6, and Josh Downs is effective in PPR.
Right. It's going to come down to Herbert. You need Herbert to be like, again,
top 15.
Top 15.
That's
yeah, exactly.
And Richardson to stay healthy.
There's
a lot of risk with my quarterback situation.
Yeah, exactly. But I think this is a strong team.
Yep.
I would love to.
Have Connor Steam instead of
I would
yours?
love to
What are you
dump
trying to say?
No, I was going to say I would love to dump on you, but legit, that's a good team. I think you did a really nice job.
Getting Cooper Kupp there really hurt me.
We'll close it out. I know. Sorry, Jay. And Najee Harris. I really took a Jay Croucher team.
Yes.
When you look at it. Let's look at Jay's actual
All right,
team.
Jay Gunn.
All right, let's take a look at my team as it comes up. I took Joe Burrow as my quarterback. I mean, Superflex drafts, it is terrifying when the quarterbacks come streaming off the board to start. Marvin Harrison Jr. and Brandon Ayuk is my wide receiver room. That looks a lot more solid as a top dude now we know Ayuk is playing. Christian McCaffrey was my first pick. Go with Travis Etienne. They were 2 of the 3 heaviest workload backs in the league last year. Happy to get Jake Ferguson. It's my tight end, who I think people are sleeping on a bit.
Yep.
Texans back-to-back, Joe Mixon. Got Stephon Diggs at pick 77. Diggs going that late.
Yeah.
I think it's a little
Both
bit
those
ridiculous.
guys are underrated. Like there's a very real chance that Diggs leads the Texans in targets this year.
Yep.
They're playing him more in the slot than I think people realize
That's
like,
the key.
yes.
Again, like last year, Stephon Diggs was going as like wide receiver 5 and it was a top 10 pick. I understand it's a different situation, but you can't go from like pick 9 to pick 77 in a year, I think. Then Chuba Hubbard, I think, is going to get volume early. Not an inspiring pick, but he's going too late in drafts. Go with Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold, let them duke it out for whoever wants to be QB2 on a week-to-week basis. Tyler Lockett, I got to pick 140. Again, not sexy, not inspiring, but has a fairly high floor. Very happy to come out of the draft with Jordan Mason when you have Christian McCaffrey. It just makes you sleep a lot easier given McCaffrey's potential soft issue injury concerns. Justin Fields, I think he's the type of guy I like taking a flyer on late just because like there are worlds where Justin Fields is the starter in the second half of the season, and 2 years ago he was QB5 on a points per game basis. So just as a flyer on Fields, then Luke Musgrave, and then I weighed up for my final pick taking Rashad Bateman or Michael Thomas as content, and ended up going with Rashad Bateman. This is the year for Rashad Bateman.
There you go. Hopefully he's eternal. I don't mind that as a late round pick either. Like again, I agree with you. Like I think you got great value in a bunch of different spots, but Mixon and Diggs specifically, I can't say more than what I'm about to say, but I will just tell you that I'm in a league with somebody that knows C.J. Stroud, that has a personal relationship with C.J. Stroud, and for whatever it's worth, this person needed a wide receiver, and this person drafted Diggs over Nico Collins.
Yeah.
Take that for whatever.
I hope they're wrong.
Take that for whatever it is worth. But this guy knows, like they have a relationship, and
I'll trade you Diggs straight up for Nico. By the way, if you want, you should do that trade.
I think I'll
based on what
pass
he
on
said.
that. I do need to call you for Justin Fields,
I think if you watch what's going on in the preseason, they're all going to eat. Nico, Tank Dell, and Diggs as well. But I do think Diggs is potentially the better value.
Can't go outside the top 75 picks in a draft.
And so Mixon and Etienne, your quarterback situation, again, same with you. It's just you're going to need to get something out of whether it's Baker or Darnold or Justin Fields eventually. You're going to get something out of that second quarterback spot.
You have maybe the strongest running back room in the league.
Yes.
And I went wide receiver heavy, and we both suffered at quarterback because of that.
And
So,
I like my quarterbacks, and I balance it out. I'm going to have to, so I tried a more balanced approach. We'll see. I will say again, it's very frustrating because
Taysom Hill
producer. Well, I would say he qualifies as a quarterback. Qualifies as a Do you guys want to trade for? I was bummed about Jake Ferguson. I was hoping he was going to last to me. You got him like 3 picks before I would have taken him. But yeah, it's producer Adam especially got a lot. Like almost my entire love list is producer Adam's team. So it's always frustrating to be in a league with everyone that's been watching you talk for 2 months.
I had no chance of getting Kyler Murray. No chance.
Let's get into the viewer draft mailbag.
Okay.
This is from TGIF08037. My league drafts running backs early and are prone to reach. I have pick 3 and debating starting triple hero running back Bijan, Henry, Pacheco, and Achan Mixon in the 3rd. If it falls that way, then I'd go heavy wide receiver for the rest of the draft. What do you think?
I got no issue with it. Again, it's hard to know without knowing exactly what your league scoring is. How is it a 10-team league? Is it a 12-team league? Are we talking 16-team? So it's hard to know in a vacuum. But again, you know your league better than we do. So if you're telling me it's a running back heavy room and that you think there'll be value at wide receiver later, which by the way, there is depth. We just went through it, right? I mean, some of these guys are dropping, like Rashee Rice going way too late, as we talked about. You just mentioned Stephon Diggs going way too late. So I don't have a problem with a triple heavy running back approach, especially by the way.
Stupid dev approach.
Yeah, the stupid dev approach. We will give Dev needs to get his say on the show. But what I was going to say is, especially if you know your league is sort of running back crazy, having that kind of depth that gives you trade pieces later in the year if you need it to. No issue with the approach if that's how it falls for you.
Yep, and just here are some names of guys going outside the top 32 or top 30 in drafts. Christian Kirk, Rashee Rice, Calvin Ridley, Deontay Johnson, DeAndre Hopkins going outside the top 40. I think there's a lot of depth at wide receiver this year.
The next one from Max. I have the 3rd pick in a 10-team PPR, 2 running back, 3 wide receiver no defense, no kicker draft. Do I take Hall/Bijan, or do I take a top-end wide receiver? Also, how do I get into a charity guillotine league with Mr. Berry?
Let's never call him Mr. Berry again, for starters.
Sounds very evil.
Yes. Yeah. Goldfinger. Expect me to talk.
Yeah, I like that. You want to handle this one? One of you guys want to take this? You want me to do this? What do you
I
got?
think the thing is
Third pick.
Third pick. So for the most part, the way this is usually going to shake out is it's going to be CMC, Tyreek, and CD Lamb. And those are your top three. And my general strategy having the third pick in the draft, I'm just taking whoever of those three guys falls. I think to 3 would be my overall strategy. But particularly if it's Tyreek falling to 3, I'm a little bit concerned about. If you want to take Bijan over Tyreek Hill, I think that's perfectly defensible.
Because it's a 10-team league, there's going to be more depth there. Because it's a 3 wide receiver, it's 2 running back, 3 wide receiver. I would probably go with a wide receiver there. But I have no problem because I think you'll be able to get. You'll be able to get a Henry or a Pacheco.
Yep, and it's PPR.
On the wraparound there. Having said all that, because wide receiver is so deep, I think you're right. I think I'd probably rank it for this particular guy. I think I would probably rank it CMC, Lamb, and then Breece. Right,
Okay.
Breece or Bijan. It's kind of a clean.
That's how I would go.
Yeah.
I don't know why I just haven't found myself taking Tyreek Hill this year. I would value CD.
It's like a 30-year-old wide receiver who gets hurt every year and is already hurt.
And
Tua doesn't
really
like it when it gets cold.
Yeah. I'm a little higher on Jefferson in that situation. If I'm going wide receiver.
Yep.
So
that's fair.
All right, the next question here from Al Main. Keeper league. Keep Jonathan Taylor and lose my 5th-round pick, or keep Breece Hall and lose my 4th-round pick. Struggling to decide with Richardson rushing versus Rodgers checking goal line runs to pass. Actually a really interesting scenario because it's great value on both.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think with Jonathan Taylor, who I think we all like where he's going at the moment, don't think that he is overvalued or anything, but it's just a math problem with the carries. Like, if Anthony Richardson is going to carry the ball 150 times, like JT kind of maxes out at 250 carries. It's pretty hard to carry the ball more than 400 times between RB1 and a quarterback who runs. So that would be the issue. I think Breece just has such a high floor if he stays healthy because he's the only guy.
The passing game work, the receiving gap between Breece Hall and Jonathan Taylor is going to be really significant. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a scenario, like if I told you a year from now, by the way, Breece Hall had more total touchdowns than Jonathan Taylor, like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Or Jonathan Taylor had more. Like, you could do that, but like, Breece Hall's going to have a lot more receiving work. So let's do one more here.
Yeah, this is from Immortal Lou 30. Shout out to Immortal Lou. Is Tyler Conklin underrated? One of only 6 tight ends in the NFL to have 55-plus catches and 550-plus yards each of the last 3 seasons. And his touchdowns should increase with Rodgers. Especially curious for Connor's take as the resident Jets expert. I think he is underrated. He doesn't even get drafted in a lot of leagues, and he's consistent. And the same comment we just had with Breece Hall, who's catching the ball for the Jets? It's Garrett Wilson. And then until Mike Williams is actually healthy, it's Breece Hall and Tyler Conklin. That's it. Yeah. It's not Xavier. Malachi Corley is not going to be much of a thing early in the season. Okay. Xavier Gibson a little, but needs to get healthy. There's just no one.
Yeah.
Conklin's going to get targets.
Yeah, I agree. But I think he's more of a tight end in a deeper league. He's not a top 10 tight end, but he's a touchdown dependent upside tight end too. I have one last question here as well. So yesterday after the draft, the entire show went out to celebrate the draft and kick off the party. Now, I went there because I'm a man of the people.
You are.
I'm a man of the people. But Jay Croucher and Connor Rogers does not go. Everyone else on the show came out to celebrate, not Jay Croucher, not Connor Rogers. But we did, I just want to point this out, we did have a special guest. Stephen, can you throw up that picture? Oh, that's right. Emmy Award-winning Todd Zeal.
He showed
made
up.
an appearance. Yeah.
That's why he wins the Emmys and I do not.
That's the people.
1,000%.
Massive win for the Mets.
Yeah.
Most shocking about this graphic is that Edwin Diaz had a save.
Yeah.
Didn't give up
with
a
no
walk.
walks.
Yeah, no bombs.
Yeah, but
man.
it was just nice of Emmy Award-winning Todd Zeal to show up to the party.
He spreads his time better than me.
Yeah. Whereas you, Connor, just blew us all off. It's all good.
The tough thing is
we were at home watching Todd Zeal.
Right. Yeah. That and the tough thing is when you're the first one at the desk every day, that means I sacrifice more time in the morning that my dog does not get to go out, so I have to go home. Yeah.
That's fair.
That's the hard part.
Or hire someone to, walk your dog, ask a neighbor to do it.
No, absolutely not. No trust in that.
It's whatever.
Absolutely not.
Connor's a man. You're a man of the people. Connor's a man of the dogs.
That's
A man of
very
the
true.
dogs.
There you go. Fair
Fantasy season just got better this season. $1 million better. Creator join a private Yahoo Fantasy League and enter the $1 million NBC sweepstakes. Plus, earn extra entries to win when players on your fantasy roster score a touchdown during an opening weekend game on NBC or Peacock. Download the redesigned Yahoo Fantasy app or go to NBCSports.com/FantasyMillion to learn more. We're taking our last break. We do how we do it in last call. We're closing out with a best bet. And this episode is who will lead the league in passing yards. Coming up right after this. DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns, and new customers can bet $5 and get $250 in bonus bets instantly, plus get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium. Download the app and use promo code Barry when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook,
The crown is yours.
It is time for last call. Jay likes Brock Purdy to be the passing yards leader, but we already did that. So we're looking at college football. Notable Big Ten lines for Week 1. Cannot wait for the true Week 1 of college football to kick off with Week 0 behind us. Jay, what are you looking at on the Big Ten board?
Okay, so lots of good games this weekend, so I'm not going with any of them. I'm going with a futures bet to win the Big Ten overall. Ohio State, plus 155. I think this should be closer to plus 115. Michigan with the coaching turnover, expecting they are not going to be able to bounce back. They're 7-1, distant fourth. Big Ten looks different. Oregon in there, plus 200. But give me Ohio State to win the Big Ten.
Matthew, I see you representing your Terps.
Yeah, as everyone knows, I've been a lifelong Terps fan for at least a year now. They're at home this week. They're at home this week against UConn, and I live here in UConn country. My wife went to UConn. My kids root for UConn as well. I've had to see a lot of UConn football over the years.
It's not good.
They're not good. They're really not good. So give me the Terps by 20. The line is minus 20. I think the Terps win by at least 3 touchdowns at home. Go Terps.
I'm with you on that one. Listen, I'm looking for an ugly game. And how about Illinois State traveling to Iowa? Iowa favored by 22.5 points, but I like the total, 40.5 going under. Iowa returning 8 of 11 starters on defense. This is an NFL defense, legitimately. It's going to be really hard for Illinois State to score points. Iowa's offense is going to be a lot different this year. I don't know how much better it's going to be.
Can't be worse.
It cannot be worse. Literally cannot be worse, but I still like under 40.5.
Okay. We had Iowa totals in like the mid-20s last season.
Yeah. Get them while you can.
Absolutely.
That's how I follow it.
Absolutely brutal. Well, listen, it's closing time, which means you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. No show on Monday because of the Labor Day holiday, but there's a big Peacock Fantasy Football Happy Hour Marathon on Sunday. Check that out. For Jay and Connor, I'm Matthew. We'll see you later. Peace out. Good luck on your drafts this weekend.
Okay, you have a chance to win $1 million in the NBC sweepstakes on Yahoo Fantasy. Just download the redesigned Yahoo Fantasy app or go to NBCSports.com/FantasyMillion for additional details. What are you waiting for?
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest RotoWorld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.